God is dead, and we have killed him. You have heard it before from social media and the rise of notoriety for the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. This isn't just an edgy slogan, it's a warning. A warning that matters more in today's day and age than ever. To understand this quote and more about Friedrich Nietzsche, we need to look back on his life and more of his work as a whole. This is the meaning and works of Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in a now East Germany village called Rocken. I'm sorry for the bad pronunciation. His father was a priest in his village, which gave Nietzsche that unwavering religious belief and intelligence for religion as a whole. However, later in his life, that unwavering faith will end. Nietzsche was a brilliant child, and when he was at the age of 24, he was made a professor at the University of Basel. But after a while, he left the university due to disputes with his colleagues and health issues. Nietzsche moved around Europe and lived famously in the Swiss Alps, and along his journey is when he would publish his writings. The Birth of Tragedy in 1872, Human All Too Human 1878, The Gay Science 1882, Thus Spoke Zarathustra 1883, Beyond Good and Evil 1886, On the Genealogy of Moral 1887. His writings did sell but very little at the time, and were not that recognized. He remained plagued by health issues for the rest of his life until his death in 1900. The official cause of death is debated and unknown among many, but if you look it up on Google, it will say that he died from neurosyphilis, though he did suffer from many other health conditions throughout his whole life. Although his work wasn't recognized much in his life, his writings and lessons will teach the future generations, such as I'm trying to spread now. The full quote is, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it?" End quote. His meaning for those words in The Gay Science, which do come up again in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche was describing the slow release of Christian culture and ideal in Europe at the time, and how their influence is crumbling, which in today's world is the truth 100%. With the decline in Christianity from the past few generations and increase in nihilism in the Western world and European world, Nietzsche was describing how the human race in effect was killing God and destroying his influence directly by standing away from God and turning to the human greed. Friedrich Nietzsche saw the increase in technology progress and secularism, replacing the religious worldview in Europe at the time. Nietzsche believed this to be an outrage, a crisis more in fact. He believed that without God and the moral structure that comes with God, he feared that the world will simply make people lost, and therefore the world. Because without the thought of no afterlife and consequences, no one would care about others and the world as a whole, which, like I mentioned previously, with the increased belief in nihilism and pessimism. Friedrich Nietzsche stated that the decline and loss of God and religion would lead to people being lost, not free. In The Gay Science, Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, quote, "Who gave us the sponge to wipe away to entire horizon?" End quote. In other words, without a framework for our lives, how do we, as humans, create purpose and morality and values when the old ones no longer exist? Nietzsche valued that framework that God and religion as a whole brings, and without that, people would fall into passive comfort conformity, and extremism. And you look in today's world, especially in the United States, it's very similar. Friedrich Nietzsche's solution was his own philosophy. Now, I apologize in advance for my pronunciation, but his own philosophy was Übermensch, which means overman or Superman. The philosophy wasn't about being better than others, rather rising above inherited values and creating meaning for yourself. The thought of his philosophy is so you take full responsibility on shaping your own purpose in life, not through ideology, tradition, or even religion, but through your own strength, courage, and creativity. As I mentioned earlier, Friedrich Nietzsche died in 1900, but after his death, his sister took the remaining of his writings that he never finished or published, such as The Will to Power. Nietzsche and his sister were completely different people. Friedrich Nietzsche strictly opposed anti-Semitism, nationalism, and state power in his whole lifetime, but his sister was quite the opposite. So when she acquired his writings and works after his death, she reframed the foundations of those works to align with what she believed in, which was German ultranationalism. The point I'm making is, if you have seen anything that associates Nietzsche with his philosophy and work with Nazi ideology, that's a distortion. In 1889, Friedrich Nietzsche experienced a mental breakdown while he was in Turin. It's a very well-known experience. The story says that Friedrich Nietzsche saw a man whipping a horse. He then ran to the horse and embraced it, and moments later, collapsing. After that day, he never mentally recovered. He was diagnosed with then general paralysis of the insane, most likely due to neurosyphilis or his other mental conditions at the time. For the remainder of his life, Nietzsche was treated by his mother and later sister, Elizabeth. But sadly, as I mentioned earlier, Friedrich Nietzsche died in 1900 from his conditions, with his works and name largely unknown to the general public. While the Gay Science and Das Buch Zarathustra are his most well-known and quoted writings, his other books delve more into his vision of life, values, and society as a whole. In his book, Beyond Good and Evil, he criticized blind obedience to traditional morality, and more importantly, that good and evil aren't universal. There is no definitive term and look for them, but they're created from power structure and cultural focus. Then there's On the Genealogy of Morality, where he dives into how a sense of guilt, shame, and even given purpose comes from centuries of religious and social conditioning. In Twilight of the Idols, written just before his mental collapse in 1888, Nietzsche takes into account everything from Socrates to German culture. His sharp, bold, and intentional provocative words are meant to tear down illusions we build to avoid the truth. And to end this, there's Esse Homo, his strange autobiography reflection, in which he reviews his own work and mocks his critics, but he also critiques himself, in a way that lets you see his own raw and genuine thoughts, which show that he isn't self-absorbed and disconnected from society, which are some critics I have seen relying on him. But this is the closest we have gotten to an unfiltered look into Nietzsche and his words, and work on a whole from himself. Across everything, the common conclusion is Friedrich Nietzsche didn't want to destroy meaning, but he wanted us to stop outsourcing it. He wanted us to stop waiting and have someone else define it for us. But what he wanted was for the people to go discover it ourselves and take responsibility for oneself. After all that I've said and mentioned, Friedrich Nietzsche's most famous work involving God is dead, and only mentioning that he didn't mean it in a literal way. But Friedrich Nietzsche was a devout Christian man. Yes, he didn't seem like a traditional Christian follower. He didn't blindly follow the church. He let God come to him and work through him in his own way. He used his mind the thing that God gave him to tell him how to live his life, and life for God. If after this video you're still interested in learning more about Friedrich Nietzsche, I will have some links below to some videos that go more in depth, just more details on his life and his works as a whole. Other than that, if you enjoy, please like and subscribe, and if you want more of my opinions, I will see you in the next one, YouTube.